Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network. Grung, I'm Asbed Bedrosian, and I'm here with Hovik Manucharian. This episode is being recorded on April 14, 2023. Only 2 days ago, Azerbaijan again attacked Armenian troops inside Armenia near the Tegh village, unprovoked, killing 4 and injuring 6. 3 Azeri soldiers were also reportedly killed. These events happened inside Armenian sovereign territory, not on the border, or in Artsakh, or through the Russian peacekeepers. At the same time, Azerbaijani soldiers have also been reported crossing into Armenian territory through the Nakhichevan border, allegedly lost in fog or bad weather or bad judgment. 2 such soldiers were found and arrested in the past 3 days, and we also know of 1 potential civilian murder committed by those saboteurs. To talk about these issues, we are joined by Alison Tahmizian Meuse, who is a veteran journalist who has reported for major international publications, including Agence France-Presse and NPR. She's currently a senior advisor at the New Delhi-based consultancy DeepStrat and a co-director of Aknandakan, an investigative documentary platform. She's based in Armenia. Hi, Alison. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Asbed. Hi, Hovik. Great to be back.
Alison, it's been 13 days since Azerbaijan conquered new heights near Tegh village. It's been 2 days since they attacked and killed 4 of our soldiers, and the entire region of Sunik cannot sleep because of potential saboteurs running around. So I wanted to ask you, you're a very influential personality on Twitter, and you have your own opinion on what's going on. What can you tell us? How are all these events related?
So I think, obviously it didn't begin with Aghavno and Berdzor. We had the territories that were handed over on November 9th. We had all of the orders to retreat that were going on during the war, that many of us only realized after it was done. But I think that we need to talk about, the significance of the handover of the Berdzor corridor, which occurred last summer, and which you guys are very well aware of because you covered it. Hovik, you visited. I was living in Aghavno for 2 months, trying to raise awareness about how critical that artery was. And let's look back 2 weeks after that artery, which to remind viewers who don't know, was the connection between Armenia, the Republic of Armenia, and Artsakh. You would drive to Goris, and from Goris go through Tegh, where these events have just happened, and you would pass through Berdzor, just below Shushi, and to Stepanakert, all secured by the Russian peacekeeping mission. Now, I can say that we were, the word was passed along to Armenian activists that if we could gather enough people in Berdzor, Aghavno, areas where we already had communities which have been uprooted since living, we could gather enough people, there would be a reason for the Russian peacekeeping mission to be able to hold it. If there would be no Armenians there, there would be no justification for them to stay. So it was very critical for the Armenian civilian population to stay and be bolstered. So myself, other individuals, obviously the people who had been working all that time to hold the area for 2 years since the war almost, the idea was people, media coverage, not one-offs, but consistent media coverage, the means to stay, basically everything that Ilham Aliyev is using his state resources to do in the Berdzor corridor now should have been done and could have been done. And I believe we would have had a different result. I truly believe that if we had gathered enough people, if those that had the resources in the organization had sent in generators, media, satellite communications devices, regular food supplies, heat, enabled, just all the things enable people to stay, I believe we could have held. And that's what, this is not something to get angry about to the point where we don't take action now. On the contrary, this is something that we should be talking about to say that, no, we have agency. There are things we can do. There are things the Azeris are doing right now that we could have done and we can still do, because there's a lot more to protect. And even more critical today, the situation in Syunik and the new road. And we'll talk about that all. But basically, yeah, your question, how did we get here? What is the link between what's happening today and what, the handovers that occurred just as recently as last summer? 2 weeks after Berdzor was handed over, which I still don't know why, given that Azerbaijan didn't uphold their end of the deal, why we just gave away that artery that included our gas pipelines, electricity, internet, unclear. All of that was just handed over without a shot fired, without any attempt to bolster the civilian presence. 2 weeks after that, we had the September attacks on Syunik, Ishkhanasar, Jermuk, Kapan, etc. So since that time, I was in Sisyan actually when those attacks happened, and literally woke up to see the smoke rising from the shelling. So the connection was very clear. It was clear to me before those areas got handed over, and it's clear to me now, their significance.
And to just add to that, I think it was shortly before the September war that they disrupted the gas supply. As soon as they took control of the Berdzor corridor, which still until today, is the way that gas is routed to Artsakh. Of course, it's blocked right now, and it has been for a while. But as soon as they took control, they disrupted the gas supply.
And in fact, I think they put a spigot on it, if
Yes.
I recall. Right?
Exactly. And there were many people when that route was being handed over were saying, oh, the Azeris are building an alternative road for us. Are you kidding me? Your enemy is going to build you an alternative road and you're going to use it.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, the alternative road was built, but the Armenian side was not. And that was the responsibility of the Armenian government. But
Hovi, let's be honest, the Azerbaijanis, the one that they built for us out of their
inferior road, obviously, yeah.
No, yeah. But it's also devoid of communities. Okay, there's Berdzor. There's a couple small villages at some points, but it's not a safe road. It's not a safe road, and it's lacking in critical infrastructure.
Right,
gas,
exactly.
Electricity, etc., and also communities. It's a scary road to drive on. As soon as I drove on that new road for the first time, I mean, it's scary. You don't have phone service. There's no phone reception. For any person, just a normal person, or maybe that has a family to be concerned about, to drive on that road and to go for an hour with no reception. And the first time I drove on that road, you see Azeri police cars around, at that point there was, the Russians were on the road, but it's very creepy.
Beyond
it's a very creepy road.
The infrastructure, it was also glaringly obvious to me that there was already an agreement between the Armenian side and the Azerbaijani side.
That's what I wanna get to
about this road.
Yes, and I can talk about
and the
how,
Azerbaijanis,
from an eyewitness perspective, that in the run-up to even when it was handed over, when when Aghavno got the orders to leave and when Berdzor got the orders to leave, I myself, another Argentinian Armenian journalist, Betty Arslanian, and the mayor of Aghavno, we went off the beaten path to see this new bypass that they were building through Berdzor.
Yeah, for months,
Azeri
Alison.
cars with license plates.
For
yes,
months,
of course. But I mean,
there were
they were
reports that the
working.
Azerbaijanis were working with bulldozers building the new road.
Yes, and they were working with the permission of the Armenian authorities. So this was all agreed on. But what I'm saying is that it was absolutely a ridiculous thing from the get-go that your enemy is going to build you a road that you're going to pass on safely. Are you kidding me? And you're not going to put any infrastructure on it? Like, what is this? Is this ridiculous? This is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
I mean, and then you had people saying, oh, but, you know, we agreed to this on November 9th. You agreed to this on November 9th? Yeah, well, Aliyev agreed to hand over your POWs. You know, it's very weird.
It's not even in the November 9th document. It's not there. So.
Well, exactly. That this is what I was talking about in Aghavno. There was nothing that said the communities had to be ethnically cleansed. And if we are supposed to be living in peace and harmony and in a new era of connectivity, which is being promised the Armenian people to this day, then if we're going to be connected, how come we can't drive on the same roads? How come people can't stay in their houses?
So, you know, as we saw things progressively go worse, and the connection to me is that at every single point when this regime gave an inch, Aliyev took a mile, and they used their control over Berdzor to put pressure on Artsakh to cut internet access and power, not just gas. They used that opportunity to also block the corridor, and it just emboldened the enemy more. And here we are today now where, so just last week, I was talking to Naira Melikian, mother of fallen hero, Haik Melikian, who actually went to the new road that is supposedly now built. And she was stopped by Armenian side, and the Armenian side essentially informed the group that was trying to pass that there is now an Azeri post, at least a military post, on our road, and some are calling it a checkpoint. There is not enough detail because the Armenian authorities won't let us cross. And as of now, as of last week, as of when the Azerbaijanis moved in, very few people are allowed to go one way or another, and we see only like a few Red Cross cars traveling. So in the background of all of this, when for 12 days, the Armenian side allowed Azerbaijanis to entrench themselves, to fortify, to secure the most secure position they could in the new posts that they conquered inside Armenia, then we decided to essentially build our own trenches. And that seems a little bit funny because those, at least, the experts that are here on military affairs, they say, you don't go in front of the enemy who is well entrenched, who has snipers pointing all over you, 150 meters from them, and try to build your own trench when, they could have been done 12 days ago. And Asped, when you initially said it was unprovoked, obviously, Azerbaijanis wanted that to happen, but at what point does inaction become a provocation? Because when you don't protect your land for 12 days and then try to do like order soldiers to go and basically act as human targets for the enemy, then what do you expect? And from that perspective, I consider Pashinyan and the regime in Armenia and at least responsible and guilty just through negligence, but I think there's more than negligence. Unfortunately, a lot of people are saying that this is all planned. I'll let Alison say what she thinks about this.
Well, human targets is a really good way to put it. And this is happening not only in Tegh, but all the way up and down the border with Azerbaijan. And I can speak as an eyewitness. And what I'll say about, first of all, we have Pashinyan saying on record in the last 24 hours that he's demilitarizing the border. He's pulling back the army and in its place putting border guards. And this is from the horse's mouth. He's doing this while the Azeris are advancing. Though if anyone who's watching this wants to look at the video the Ministry of Defense of Armenia put out about what happened in Tegh, they will see that it's an open field and it's a truck of Azeris approaching unperturbed. This is ridiculous. And the Armenian side either doesn't have the weapons or the orders to shoot at these guys coming at them. This is insane. This is like Pashinyan is turning Armenia into the West Bank. He's turning Armenia, which is currently a state, into a non-state that is not where the army is being dismantled. They're being pulled from the borders. They're being pulled back in favor of basically border guards or NSS, which I'm being told by friends who are actually going in volunteer squads to defend the border because the military isn't being enabled to. We're talking about kids, as if we're a stateless people that needs to rely on ragtag paramilitary groups that are going to be labeled terrorist groups and etc. These kids are going and they're telling us that the NSS, which is the National Security Service of Armenia, is simply acting as spies against the army. And every time the NSS shows up, that means that the area is going to get handed over to the Azeris, which is happening. And when these events happen in Tegh, when 4 soldiers of the Armenian army get killed by Azeris who are allowed to just approach, because apparently it's a delimitation and demarcation process, which is going on totally hush-hush, totally non-transparent, not even by the maps that would actually favor of us that are in Moscow and which the Russians have offered to use and mediate by, but just, hodgepodge with the Azeris, based on what Pashinyan says, we'll be using 1991 maps, the least favorable to Armenia, as you know from the cartographers you guys have interviewed. This is being treated like, Suren Papikian, the defense minister, who's actually, his experiences as a high school teacher who was kicked out of the army for stabbing his superior. He says that, it was a misunderstanding. This unfortunate incident, etc., happened during, an adjustment. Is a misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding between cartographers.
It's not cartographers. We would know what happened after November 9th. They were using Google Maps. They left guys behind the front lines.
Yeah.
This is being
Amateurs.
done in an amateurish way, that there's no reason it has to be done like this. We had other offers. And I don't understand. And as Naira Malikian told you guys on Grung, the Russians wouldn't let the Azeris have a checkpoint on the corridor. They've said that publicly. It's not going to happen. Even the Armenian side said it's not in the agreement. So what did they do? They gave the Azeris a checkpoint on Armenian soil.
Right.
So obviously there was, some kind of deal that needed to be upheld. And this is what's happening. They've given the Azeris a checkpoint on Armenian soil to strangle Artsakh. This is what's being implemented in a totally non-transparent way. And they're giving And by the way, Tegh, so now they have the Berdzor, the road to Tegh leads up to Sisyan. They've already given the Goris Kapan road. All of this leads to conceding this quote-unquote Zangezur corridor that Aliyev wants. This is being conceded in a way that allows the government in Armenia plausible deniability. Oh, we couldn't do anything, our guys were getting killed. Yes, but you're not allowing them to shoot back. You're not equipping them to push back the Azeris. And we can talk about this more, but all the way up and down the border, you have the same situation. You have the Azeris moving up, digging in, and Armenians with no orders or equipment to shoot back.
Indeed, yeah. Let's talk about flags because, and specifically 2 weeks ago, during the parliamentary hearing for the nomination of the new human rights ombudsman, Edgar Ghazarian was, in that hearing, and the entire civil contract team was there to heckle and not allow him to speak. But one of the things that he said that essentially drew a lot of ire and like sort of loud bickering and almost violence from the civil contract side was he said that you can see Azerbaijani flags in Sisyan or Kapan. The civil contract team publicly said that's not true, and in addition to all the violent things.
Yeah, they called him a liar.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, you've been traveling through the region. Can you see any flags there? And can you see any Armenian flags?
So I was actually, by total coincidence, in Kapan with Aknandakan, that exact same time period as Edgar Ghazarian was meeting with the committee. And Kapan city, when you drive in, there's first on your left, there's the Sunik airport, which is obviously not functioning. And just over the airport is an Azerbaijani flag. An Azerbaijani post with an Azerbaijani flag. And then a little bit to the right, you can see an Armenian post and another Azerbaijani post with an Azerbaijani flag. This you can see without binoculars. This is visible to the naked eye. And these areas used to be firmly under Armenian control. And now the Azeris have just been allowed to just comfortably dig in to their posts. And it was very surreal because underneath this post, you see an Armenian employee, I guess of the non-functioning airport, spraying the grass of the runway for pesticides. Tomorrow, it's not out of the imagination that guy could just be gunned down or that the Armenian post could be attacked, because these Azeris have been allowed to set up their posts unperturbed and dig in. And this is not just Kapan city, you see this. I also went with Aghanandakan, we went to Nerkin Hand, which is surrounded on 3 sides. Every night, they see the light from the Azeri post. They can't even go to their cemetery. There was one woman we met whose husband had passed away in August. And in September, during the September attacks by Azerbaijan, which a lot of people know, they took the heights over Jermuk, which, if anyone's enjoyed a Jermuk mineral water, they'll know what Jermuk is. They also pushed forward all along the border, and they are sitting right over Nerkin Hand, and they can no longer visit the cemetery. She can no longer visit the grave of her husband. She couldn't go for his 40 days. And not only that, they can't access the source of the water. They're drinking water that any day could be contaminated because the Azeris have the source. And these people also used to have cows. No cows. Same thing in Tegh. No more cows because they need land to graze. They used to harvest wheat, which is obviously used to make bread. No more wheat. Let's talk about Artsakh. how many wheat fields there were that were handed over, lands that were defended until the final day of the war, signed over by Nikol Pashinyan with the stroke of a pen by choice. You know, there's pasta brands we used to buy at the store in Yerevan when I first came to Armenia after the war. You don't find them anymore. There's no more wheat because they came from Artsakh. So this government is signing over wheat, water, lands where cows grazed. So basically making this country totally dependent on the outside world for the most basic needs. Over 30 hydroelectric plants of Artsakh handed over. This is a huge national security issue. And unfortunately, I think that the people at the very top, they don't care very much. They're motivated by other concerns, but the people that's supporting them are totally ignorant to these issues. You know, we're talking very basic things like water, wheat, power, and they seem to think that, you know, these are non-existent problems. But actually,
Alison,
Aliyev and Erdogan are taking care of these problems for their people, and the Armenian government is just signing them over.
Alison, on the issue of flags, I saw that you were involved in several, I guess, what would be called creative efforts to actually raise new flags on areas that are, you know, in the border areas. So I think you guys went to Ani, Pemza, which is just right across the Turkish border, right, basically close to the Turkish border. I think you even went to Geghar-Kunik,
Artanish also.
Artanish. So tell us. Some people criticized you on social media as a, you know, you're doing futile things. And
so, I mean, as you guys know, I grew up in the U.S. So, you know, every Memorial Day, every Veterans Day, the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, would do ceremonies, you know, marking those days, raising the flag, and, you know, not just, you know, this wasn't like, these weren't rah-rah occasions, but really very solemn and commemorating sacrifices. And I remember even there being discussions on, you know, the cost of war, righteousness of some wars over others, etc. Anyway, I'm no stranger to these kinds of initiatives. And I think that also the MIA POW flag, as we know very well in the US, is omnipresent, trying to make sure that communities all over the country remember the prisoners of war, the missing in action, and keeping that cause alive. And in Armenia, I mean, it's even more important because, let's be honest, in America, it's been a long time since the country, I think, fought an existential war that really was about protecting the immediate values, cause, needs of the country. Whereas in Armenia, it's existential. So, and myself, several different groups have joined this initiative called Pasan Hayranat. And so the idea is to basically gift an Armenian flag to border communities. So we're talking like the flagpole, the whole setup, and those flags are donated each time by a diaspora family. So the idea is also to create a connection between the diaspora and Armenian border communities. And we also do a cultural program. So every time we're having different artists come, you know, actually create some fun, have dancing, you know.
Alison, have you found that these activities make a difference in the morale of the community?
Oh, yeah. People are very happy. I can share with you guys for the link to this conversation, some of the pictures. It's a lot of fun, It's not just about, solemnness, patriotism, blah, blah. I mean, this is also about making sure that people feel that they're not forgotten. And it's not about one event, but it's about creating a relationship. Now, for example, in Ardanish, we heard a rumor that there was, a post taken. These people are living 5 kilometers from Azeris. And Ardanish, this village, which is on the eastern shores of Lake Sevan. Imagine, you're on the village, you see Lake Sevan, and you know that the Azeris are 5 kilometers away, 5 kilometers from Lake Sevan, from Armenia's, the whole region's largest source of drinking water. And these people, the interesting thing about this village, almost all of them are there. Their families were originally displaced from Azerbaijan. So they know very well the threat. They're very brave people, very good people. And, a lot of the people that came down for this event were soldiers, who are serving at these posts. So they really appreciate it. We had so much fun. And for me, it allows me to check in, see how people are living, how they're doing, what's the situation, and have a follow-up. We keep in touch with each other. When we hear rumors that, there was a rumor that there was a post taken above Ardanish, and so we're able to check in, see how they're doing, what's going on. And unfortunately, given that the state has been totally captured and is working for Turkish interests, we need to help each other now. That's the most important.
Yeah. Indeed, Alison, to me, the flag is the most basic symbol of your state. That's why when you see the Azerbaijani flag, you get intimidated. And that's why when at least I and many people, when they see an Armenian flag flying high, it encourages you, tells you that the state is there. And, I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's a very original and very powerful idea. And it's a way to build new connections and new links. So I do appreciate it.
Well, yeah, it's a way of telling you that we're still here. It's literally the most basic sign. I mean, to say who's approaching, who's there. It's really an important visual during these times. I mean, when we're in Aghavno, I won't forget the day that the cross over the village was taken down, so that when the Azeris came, they wouldn't desecrate it. I mean, that cross was a symbol that this is, there's Armenians here, that we're here. So when you saw the cross come down, it was very symbolic. So to have these flags go up, it's it's not just a symbol, but it's literally a signal that this is like a safe place. It's like the Underground Railroad or something.
Alison, let's come back to, I guess, more urgent matters. Over the last few days, we heard of the news that Azerbaijani soldiers had infiltrated Armenia. Of course, Azerbaijan painted them as lost, although when they announced that they were lost, one of these soldiers was already discovered 14 kilometers into Armenia. The misinformation around this was so rife, and from all sides, from the Azeris saying that they're lost. Pashinyan himself said, one of the soldiers was caught, and maybe the other one has decided to go back. So, and that was yesterday. And today we learned that the other soldier was discovered by villagers. None of these soldiers were arrested or apprehended by security forces or law enforcement. They were apprehended. They were left. The government basically left the villagers themselves to deal with these folks. And there's also rumors that there are many more who entered Armenia and left, and maybe there's a few more who are lingering. So what can you tell us about this incident? Of course, I should not forget to say that this soldier that was caught today, he murdered A civilian, a security guard at the
Zangezur copper mining company. Yeah.
Berdzor, yeah. He murdered a security guard there, and possibly, he was gloating on social media about
Yeah,
murdering
he went live
many other
on
people. Yeah.
the guy's phone who he had just killed.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts? You're keeping in touch with people there. How are the people reacting to this incident, and what's the situation in general?
So I had just been in Sisian the week before this occurred. So very close to, these villages where the first one turned up, the second one, the area where they had infiltrated, and then the second one was caught in Kapan. It's a very odd story. The first one, if you see the video where he's in a house, he's eating a sandwich. He doesn't look tired. He doesn't look dirty. He doesn't look like he walked for, any amount of time. He's just hanging out. It's very weird. The second guy, when he got caught, they roughed him up. So he looks a little bit rough, but also very disturbing because he had, just before that, he had gotten to the Zangezur mining company in Sunik, killed the security guard, took the guy's phone, went live. Imagine, he went live bragging that he killed the guy on the dead guy's phone with no fear. He's on Armenian soil, no fear. And why is that? Well, I can tell you why that is. Because Pashinyan freed every single Azeri POW without getting back Armenian POWs who are still being tortured to death, and confirmed some of them to have had their organs removed and been killed in Baku. At least one was sent back with his body with organs removed, as reported by Tegh. And Pashinyan even sent back 2 men who had been convicted of killing miners in Artsakh. Convicted of killing miners. These are not soldiers. They weren't taken during war. And he just sent them back. He sent back every single Azeri prisoner. Well,
that's basically like an invitation.
Are still in Baku,
including murderers and criminals.
Yes, exactly. Every single means of getting back Armenian POWs, he is just given away. Oh, and plus mine maps. Oh, plus Berdzor. Oh, plus the Goris-Kapan Road, which the Iranians offered to help us defend. But he just keeps giving it away.
Alison, what is so horrifying about this incident is, like, as soon as it was announced that there could be saboteurs on the loose, I would think that any sane government would lock down the entire town or village and would use thousands of security forces to
they're busy securing the security of 4 Azerbaijani weightlifters who are coming to Yerevan for the European weightlifting competition. Which, by the way, as I heard, Russia isn't allowed to participate in this competition because Russia's bad. But Azerbaijan is good, and we're going to protect them too. Even while one of their saboteurs killed an Armenian on Armenian soil and bragged about it. And by the way, just before that, Pashinyan said, oh, he went back. Oh, they're being mistreated in Azerbaijan, blah, blah. Ask if this guy is working for you and your tax dollars, your tax drums. I don't think so. Unless he's just a sadist or a masochist, that could be another weird explanation. But my feeling on this, having just been in Sisian with very close friends, my friends who are veterans of the Sisian Johat, who fought in the 90s, who liberated, Berdzor and Kavarjar, who fought in 2016 and, beat the Azeris back in 2016, and who in 2020 found that the artillery had been pulled back behind them and they had been left to get captured by these traitors. Those guys have been, since the 2020 war, put through the ringer. They've been tried on ridiculous charges. They've been put through the judicial system. And, this is a whole other topic to discuss, but I understand at least 4 generals are in jail right now, including Grigory Khachadurov, who Pashinyan even had to award with a medal after he forced back the Azeris from Tavush in July 2020. Grigory Khachadurov, who who opposed Pashinyan, who didn't give up an inch of land, who no one can really question his credentials. He went, he's a decorated military veteran, and he's in jail. Why? He's against Pashinyan. He doesn't want to give up Armenian land. Why? This is what's happening in Armenia. Anyone who's patriotic and won't compromise on Armenian sovereignty is being thrown in jail. And what's happening in places like Tegh, Kapan, Nerkinhand, it's not a sudden, oh, surprise, the Azeris attacked, oh my God. No, Pashinyan and his team admitted they are just doing border adjustments, and they're demilitarizing. They're pulling back the Armenian army. They are basically downgrading Armenia from a state to some sort of, territory.
Concentration camp, basically.
Like the West Bank. Artsakh is becoming like Gaza, totally cut off. Armenia is like the West Bank with different roads passing through it in different places where Armenians can't go on those roads. And maybe Yerevan and Ashtarak will be like, a playground where you can have wine festivals and things like that. And they'll get grants from the EU and the US to make peace. This is what's happening.
At least
if these
Gaza
people
has access to the sea.
These people stay in power, Armenia will not be a state in a few years. That's the truth. And I don't say that to debilitate the people listening from caring, because this is what this government is counting on. This is what they're working on 24/7. These things, it's not that difficult. Most of these lands were just handed over. Berdzor handed over. Goris Kapan handed over. Harvajar handed over. Shushi, has anyone seen any footage of that? We've seen footage of every single beheading. We haven't seen any footage of the actual liberation of Shushi, except that footage that Azerbaijan claimed were their fighters, which were actually Kurdish PKK. So, this is not Armenia is not this weak, helpless state that they've tried to make it out to be, but they've just been convincing people that this is the only option. We have to take the least worst deal. Just give up now while you're not too far behind. It's psychological warfare. That's what's happening here.
So how do you defeat it? Because, there is this concept, like, is it, I guess psychologists called it learned helplessness, or some actually invoke this idea of this false sense of normalcy. If the country is being sold away, then why don't I feel it in the center of Yerevan?
Yeah, have a Eurovision competition.
Yeah. So how would you combat this? What would be your advice to someone in Yerevan? And at the same time, what would be your advice to someone in the diaspora? That we have many in the diaspora who are also very apathetic.
So the biggest thing I've learned from going to these border villages is, this is the opposite of apathetic, these people. A lot of the people are serving on the posts. They're 100% committed to pushing back the Azeris. Almost every village is the front line now. And they're living there. They're resisting by living there and staying there. And they have their kids there. These people are not apathetic. And anyone who was convinced to, support these authorities was not convinced by this ridiculous fake peace agenda. They were convinced just to think that others were not patriotic enough. That's how they convinced these people. They convinced them that others had misused funds, had hurt the army. All of these things were based on hurting the nation. These people are pro-Armenia. They are very nationalistic. They care deeply about the future of the country. Some have been misled, but many haven't. And I would suggest to people in Yerevan just, get out, visit the borders, get around the country in a meaningful way. And a lot of people are, though. It's not what people think. It's not that people are so separated. I mean, there are many people in Yerevan that are working on initiatives to help the army posts. I mean, there are people that are working on bringing netting for camouflage, bringing tires for the posts. I mean, I don't think it's fair to give this idea of people being apathetic. And I think that, of course, yeah, if you walk around, people are having coffee in a coffee shop and doing their grocery shopping and whatever. But people are also, if you go around and talk at their tables, I mean, people are at their wits' end.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll get to the rant portion of your show, but maybe I can just say now that I'm sorry, but if you're asking my mechanic to just go and tear down the government on his own, I don't know what you're talking about. There needs to be leadership. Sorry, but the opposition, those with resources, need to assert themselves. Because this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. And if they think they're going to sit pretty and keep their businesses when all this is done, they're looking at something else. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to lose everything. Everyone's going to lose everything.
All right. We're going to leave it there for today. Alison, do you have any last words for our listeners?
Before I walk the plank? Yes.
You will not be walking the plank.
If anyone from the audience is inspired to help with these initiatives, I mean, we have this flag project. We have another very good friend is trying to get going a project that he had implemented in Jabach in Georgia, where they went to all of the regions and we're doing sports competitions, etc. We're trying to raise money for a new camera for Aknandakan. So if anyone wants to help, who can't actually get physically to Armenia, but wants to be part of, the solution to all the things we talked about, I can give you guys the links. That would be great.
Yeah, we'll put the links in the show notes. Absolutely.
Fantastic. And then, yeah, I mean, just shortly, I think that you guys have your rants on the weekly review. I would just like to say that it's a little bit frustrating but I think I just have to say unequivocally, as somebody who has worked in the Middle East for about 10 years, seen Turkish occupation manifest in many different contexts, and also, tried to do my part and get involved and worked as a fellow with the Armenian government. I think people need to understand and that this is an occupation. Armenia is currently under occupation for all intents purposes. When Azeris are caught, given to the police, they're going back to Azerbaijan. This government is not looking out for our best interests, not for the best interests of the Armenian nation, not for the best interests of people in Armenia. And we're in a very precarious situation where our borders are openly being demilitarized, as announced by this administration. And that's incredibly dangerous, as we know from the beheadings, from the rapes of women soldiers, etc. I mean, if that's something that, you think is good, then go on, keep defending them. But if you think that's something that's, bad, I would say you need to really get with the program, and reassess how you relate to Armenia. And I'm not saying to to disengage, but on the contrary. Hovik is living here. I'm living here. I think now is the time when we need to be involved in pushback, big time, because I think the major war is to get people out of complacency, and I think that if we can have an actually pro-Armenian administration in charge, we have so many things going in our favor. The geopolitical scene is changing. Iran wants Armenia to stay as a state, as does Russia. They wouldn't have sent in their peacekeepers, before the war concluded if they didn't. And so we're up against Turkey and Azerbaijan. We're up against the West that wants this Artsakh file out of the way. But I really don't think it's as overwhelming as people have been convinced to believe. And I think that people need to put pressure on the opposition and those with the resources to make a change, to do so and stop making excuses. Because if it had been us staging a civic sit-in Berdzor instead of the Azeris, we wouldn't have the Azeris in Tegh right now.
Okay. Hovik, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, just I think that to underscore what Alison said, I think it's very important to refuse to accept what they're feeding, to refuse to accept that this is normal, and to refuse to accept that we're helpless. We are, day and night. I mean, you can either worry and just be paralyzed, or you can take action, even if it's composing a tweet. But I'm sure you can do more than that, especially those in the diaspora. Please get involved. Please find out how you can protest, how you can help, especially with great projects such as the ones that Alison mentioned.
All right. That's our show. We hope you found it useful. Please find us on social media and follow us everywhere you get your Armenian news. The links are going to be in the show notes along with Alison's notes. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Alison.
Guys. Take care.
That concludes this Conversations on Grung episode, and we hope you found it useful. As always, we invite your feedback. You can find us on most social media and podcast platforms or our website, grung.org. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like our pages, and follow us on social media. On behalf of everyone in this episode, we wish you a good week. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.